Hi, this is Erwin Lazar, Vice President and Service Director here at Nemertes Research, and welcome to our webinar entitled COVID-19 Pandemic, Impact on Virtual Workplace Collaboration Now and in the Future, presented by Robin Garris, President and Founder of Nemertes Research. A replay of this webinar will be available on our channel shortly following this session. Today's webinar consists of an interactive presentation and a moderated Q&A period. Please feel free to submit any questions you may have along the way, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. Please use the BrightTALK control panel to submit those questions. With that, let's go ahead and get started, and I will hand it over to you. Take it away, Robin.
Great. Thanks, Erwin, and welcome, everybody. So as Erwin said, we have some good new research here in the COVID-19 pandemic and how that's affected the virtual workplace, both now and in the future. So this was research that we conducted April 2nd through the 7th. So it's very new research. We're continuing to conduct additional research, in our future research projects as well. We're going to be launching another one, I believe, next week. So I'll start with a quick about Nemertes. We will talk a little bit about the study itself, and I'll show you some of the data that we have gotten from this on employees working from home, as well as some of the success that they're seeing, and then what we're seeing with contact center agents as well. Okay, so very quickly here about Nemertes. So for those of you who don't know us, we are a research and strategic advisory company. We focus on analyzing the business value of emerging technologies. So you can see the research areas that we cover there on the right with the icons. One of the things that we do that's very different from other companies is we really focus on quantitative metrics that show how technology is affecting business value. So we look at things like ROI and TCO. We look at success metrics and KPIs. We really try and, in every research project, define success groups and see what successful companies are doing versus all other companies. And, we do this through research projects that include both interviews with IT and business and CX leaders, depending upon the project, and also then augmenting those interviews with electronic surveys. And we do quite an exhaustive integrity methodology to make sure that the data is good. So we've been around since 2002, and we're privately held. So that's just a little bit about Nemertes for those of you who don't know us. Okay. The slides are going, there's a little bit of a delay here in advancing the slides, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going ahead of myself here. So just so you know some of the upcoming research that we have before I get into today's topic, we have just finished a research project called Cost-Benefit Analysis in the Workplace Collaboration Space, and we interviewed or surveyed 518 organizations globally, and obviously a range of vertical industries there too, but we have a lot of great data on real-world costs, operational costs to actually manage and run various workplace collaboration services, calling, team collaboration, meetings. What are the benefits, like hard dollar benefits that companies are seeing? That's some great new data that we have. And also some data as well in the contact center as far as the costs that companies are spending to actually manage the infrastructure, application services in the contact center. Some of the upcoming research projects, we have it's actually visual communications and collaboration, not video. That we are recruiting for already, so you can click in the attachments tab, and if you're interested in participating in that research, you'll get the research when it is finished. Erwin is going to be running that research, and I believe it's going to start next week. And we have a couple other things upcoming that are in progress right now. Our annual Intelligent Customer Engagement Study will be coming soon. I think we start that one in late May. And then also we're doing a study on Internet of Things. So that's another annual study that's evaluating the business value of IoT in the enterprise. The Intelligent Customer Engagement one, by the way, looks at things like contact center, CRM, AI, analytics, that type of thing. So those are some of the things we have upcoming, just so you can keep an eye on those. And we're always presenting on all of our research data, by the way, in our BrightTALK channel, so you can follow it there if you subscribe to our channel. Okay, so just real quickly on the research study itself. So, boy, it's slow today. Come on. And then I click it, and it goes too ahead. So I'll just start talking here on the research study participants. So for this particular project, we had 460 companies from 8 countries, 40 verticals. That includes a lot of the sub-verticals, like within financial services and within healthcare, within professional services, for example. And then just under 8,000 was the average employee count, and 1.5 billion on the annual revenue average. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're seeing here in the research for employees working from home. So you can see, obviously, there's no big surprise here to anybody. There's been a dramatic rise in companies who have at least some employees working from home. So on the left-hand side, you can see that prior to COVID-19, about 63% of companies in our study had employees that work from home. I mean, obviously not everybody, but at least some employees work from home, either full or part-time. Post-COVID, that number went up to almost 91%. So practically overnight, we saw companies having to move large numbers of their employees to home offices, which is, to me anyway, I kind of look back at that time frame, and I'm surprised at how well that part of it went. We didn't hear a whole lot of terrible stories about how bad the work-at-home movement was going, and people just kind of did it, and we didn't see a whole lot of fallout from it. Now, it's not to say there weren't challenges, and I will get into some of those in a minute. But now, if you look at this chart, this shows you the workforce itself. So the last chart showed you the percentage of companies. This chart shows you the percentage of employees. And let me read this all to you. So first, you've got the first cluster of bars is the normal full-time employees, so prior to COVID, and then the normal part-time employees. You can see in full-time on average, and each cluster has a different size of employee in there. So if you look at the normal full-time employees, about 35% roughly were working from home prior to the pandemic. Now, if you look at the second cluster of bars there, you can see it's up to 72%. Part-time went from 22% up to 50%, 51%. So you can see part-time more than doubled. So you can see huge increases in the percentage of employees that actually, moved from full-time to full-time or part-time, in the office now, working at home. Okay, and there we go. So you can see that we asked organizations, whether their employees would continue to work from home post-COVID-19, because to me this is what's really important. I mean, what happened in the past is done. We had people working from home, and there's a lot of companies who had never had people working from home that now have an experience. Now, kind of trial by fire, right? They're able to see whether this is working or not. And you can see that about 70% of companies overall are either definitely planning to continue working from home or probably planning to continue working from home. You still have about 17% where they're unsure, the jury's still out, they're still evaluating it. Only about 13% said no, they're absolutely not going to continue working from home. So that's kind of what that left pie chart, oops, I'm sorry guys, it looks like this went ahead on me again, darn it. Okay, that's what the left pie chart shows you there. Now, on the right-hand side, what you can see is that by size of company, when it just comes to all employees overall, it's a little bit different in the contact center, but all employees overall, you can see that larger companies are more apt to continue having their employees working from home after the COVID restrictions are lifted compared to the smaller companies or the mid-sized companies. So you can see, small companies, about 69% of them plan to continue working from home, just under 69% in the mid-size, but then you look at the larger companies, 75% of them are saying, look, we're going to continue this. And we're going to get to some of the reasons as to why. All right, so you can see that quality of life is actually really the top reason why companies are going to continue having their employees work from home. 59% of that was the number one reason. Now that, of course, ends up, really snowballing into other effects. For example, if you have employee quality of life better, then you're going to reduce your turnover rates, which is the fourth reason down there. If their quality of life is better, maybe they will continue being more productive at home, or they'll work more hours from home, and those are over there on the bottom. And I don't know whether you think that's a good or a bad thing for the employees, but it certainly is good for the companies and those making the decisions. Now, the second most commonly cited reason for staying working from home is it's going to prepare us for future disasters. I think one thing that many companies that we spoke to over the last month or so have learned is that either they were really prepared for this or they really were not prepared for this. And I would say more companies were not prepared for something of this magnitude. How could you be, right? So I think by going through this, it shows companies that we're going to be prepared for just about anything life throws at us after going through moving this number of people to home offices. So you can see the companies say it will prepare us for future disasters. Also, environmental concerns. You know, as we have gone into the pandemic life, you can see all the data and all the numbers that show how pollution levels are going down drastically. You know, how kind of interesting, wildlife is returning to the streets of cities. I saw some photos a couple days ago of coyotes on the busiest street in the city of Chicago because they were, you know, middle of the day, weekday, you know, so things like that that are happening. I don't know that that's what people mean when they talk about it being better than the environment, but certainly, you know, when you look at the pollution levels, that is definitely better for the environment. If we can keep people at home even part-time, and I think that's what we really are going to start seeing more and more of is more part-time working from home. There's a lot of good that can come from that. Now, the one reason why people are working from home, and I would say at this point is pretty understated, is saving in real estate costs. You can see about a quarter of companies said that they will save in real estate costs by keeping people from home. I don't think a lot of companies have actually put a pencil to paper on this one yet and really evaluated how much they will save moving people to home offices. I have some data on it and a few slides on the contact center, but I think as time goes on, we're going to see more and more companies looking at the real estate cost savings of having people work from home and seeing how that adds up very, very quickly. And that will, I think, be a bigger driver for more companies than what is stated here on this chart. And we'll continue to track this and see what happens. Now, of course, as you saw in the previous slide, there were still, you know, about 13% who said, you know, no, we really don't have any plans to continue having people working from home. In fact, we're sending them back to the office as soon as we possibly can. And as soon as my slide forwards, I can... Here we go. So why do we see companies wanting to go back to the office? Well, top reason by far is they feel they can serve their customers better if they're on site. So it could be, you know, the type of company, obviously for a retailer, for a restaurant who might have some people working from home dealing with, you know, taking orders or, you know, working e-commerce site, things like that. They're going to be able to serve their customers better on site. In other cases, it's really just about managing their people remotely. It's too difficult for them to, you know, manage people remotely. Maybe they haven't had any training. Maybe they haven't done that. Maybe it's just they have some people working from home normally, but they handpick those people. They know that they can do a good job from home, whereas other people just, you know, some people just aren't made to work from home. Others just say, you know, it's too early for this decision to be made at all, so at this point we're going to say no. About 40% say they were more productive at the office. But the one that I want to highlight here is one that's circled at the bottom. Technology did not work well enough. Only 9.4%, less than 10% of companies said that is the reason why they're sending people back to the office. So I saw that and I thought that was really, really substantial, really, really important. Because, you know, if you think about this, if this happened 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would not see the success in the technology side of things that we see today. Now, that's not to say there weren't challenges, because you're going to see there were some technology challenges for sure, but companies overcame them, and the challenges weren't great enough to where they said, okay, this technology is not working, we can't keep people from home, you know, can't keep people working from home. The majority of companies have no problem with the technology. In fact, it's working great. Now, that said, when they first went to home offices, we did ask, okay, what were some of the challenges that you faced, you know, going to your home office environment? And the top one was managing people remotely still, so it was not a technology issue. And sorry, my slide's waiting for that slide to forward. Must be a lot of webinars going on today because the slides are moving very slowly. Try again here. Okay, still not moving forward.
Freezing up.
Yeah, it's freezing up. Hopefully it'll, there we go. Oh, now, see, then it goes like 2 ahead because I clicked it too many times. Okay, there we go, guys. Sorry about this. Oh, gosh. I'm just not having any luck today with this. Well, the slide will eventually catch up. I'll review the data because I have it up on a separate screen. Oh, here we go. So when we talked about the challenges themselves, the top challenge for employees overall was not technology at all. It was just managing people remotely again. Just having that training, having that ability to manage your remote workforce. And then about 53-ish% said security was the biggest challenge that they faced. Then we get into some of the technology issues, internet performance, network infrastructure, just making sure people at the home offices had the right internet speeds in their services, had the right network infrastructure. Some of it was just getting that IT equipment to people. Imagine the logistics of that when, if you already have a home office part-time, no big deal. You go home and you can just work at home, full-time now. But for those who didn't have any office, just imagine getting all the equipment out to people and getting what they needed. Access to applications, the video quality was an issue for some, and then just training employees overall, not only how to use the technology, but just how to work from home. I told the story if you were on my last webinar, you heard it, but I'll tell it again just because it's a funny one. We talk about getting equipment to people from home offices. I have a nephew who works for a tech company, and they sent him to his home office to work, and he went all over trying to find a desk because he didn't have a home office and he didn't have a desk. And everywhere, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, everything was sold out of desks. And so he sent me a picture and said, "Hey, Auntie, that beer pong table that you bought me in college is coming into really good use now." So his whole home office is set up on his Fighting Illini beer pong table, which I thought was pretty funny. I thought, actually, I thought about putting that photo in here. I thought everyone would get a kick out of that. But anyway, people are making it work, right? So the other data point that I ran here that I thought was kind of interesting is what I wanted to see was, what percentage of each one of these vendors here, what percentage of their customers that sent employees to work from home after the COVID pandemic hit plan to continue working from home after the pandemic orders cease? So you can see that here. It's a correlation, but it's kind of an indicator as to how well companies did so far anyway, and this could change over time, but based on who their provider, who each company in their research's provider is, who's giving them, or who's providing their work from home workplace collaboration technology, how many of them are going to continue working from home. So you can see here, all companies did pretty decent. There are pretty high percentages here that are going to continue working from home. But you can see some of the ones who have the highest percentages: CenturyLink, Microsoft, BT, AT&T, Cisco, Orange, and so on. So you can see how that all added up. Okay, so now I am going to go into some of the contact center data. So we have similar charts here, where we wanted to isolate contact center agents. So when you look at the agents themselves, this is the companies, not the agents. So prior to COVID, about 59% of companies had their agents working from home. That went up to about 74% post-COVID. So it wasn't quite as big of a jump as we saw in all employees. This is just looking at contact center agents. So you still have contact center agents actually going into the contact centers. And a lot of that, by the way, as I was evaluating that data, just as an aside, a lot of the contact centers are in some of the states, in the plains and that. A lot of those contact centers are in states that have not been quite as affected by COVID as some of the more populated states. So you have a lot of contact centers in, South Dakota and, some of the plain states and that Nebraska and other states where, maybe the restrictions weren't as stringent about working from home. So I think that's part of what we saw there, at least in some of the interview notes that I saw. So this is just kind of giving you an idea, again, the same chart that we did for all employees. So first cluster is looking at companies who had agents, or the percentage of agents rather, the percentage of agents working at home full-time normally. Second cluster shows the percentage working from home part-time normally. And so you can see, the bars represent different sizes of companies. The red one is just all companies, all sizes. So we went from 49% working full-time before COVID, and if you look at the third cluster bars, that shows us after COVID full-time, it went up to about 75%. And then for part-time, it went from 33% up to about 51%. So we definitely saw a big jump here in agents working from home. And I almost put forth that when you look at contact center agents versus employees at large, there's a little bit more complexity to a contact center agent just because of the number of apps that they use and, the requirements that they be very responsive and on all the time because they're dealing with customers. It's not just like I'm talking to a colleague and we have a technical glitch and we just get back on the phone together. So it's a little bit more challenging, I think, to bring the contact center agents to to home office. Certainly not impossible, and it's very doable for a lot of companies. It's just you have to look at more, and it's obviously not something you'd prefer to do in a pandemic situation. It's something you'd really prefer to do when you have more time to be very deliberate about everything. But I think companies overall did pretty well here too. You can see the numbers for whether agents are going to continue working from home, post-COVID. A few more planning to definitely work from home than we had employees at large. About a few less on the probably side. And then you had a few more saying no. A few less saying no. No, I'm sorry, I was right the first time. A few more saying no. So when you looked at employees overall working from home post-COVID, it was about 13% already saying no. With contact center, you have about 15% already saying no. So, a little bit more decisiveness there, but not by much. And then if you look at the sizes of companies, there's a little bit of a difference here too. If you recall with employees at large, it was larger companies that were the most apt to keep their employees working from home after COVID. With the contact center though, even though all the numbers are pretty high, it's smaller companies that are more apt to do this. In large part, as I looked at some of the notes here, you had some of the larger companies say, well, look, we had this sunk investment in contact centers, and we have a whole process in place. We have a, 3,000 agent contact center, 10,000, however many they have, and they don't want that to all go to waste. Now, I would put forth that as CFOs start putting, again, the pencil to the paper on the real estate costs, you might see this shifting a bit. Over time, because they're going to see that the contact center agents are performing pretty well from their home offices, and they can save some significant dollars, which I'll get into in just a minute. So when we look on the contact center agent side, what's driving them to keep their agents at their home offices, just like employees at large, improving quality of life is the big issue here. So, they see a lot of benefits snowballing from that. Also, preparing us for future disasters and better for the environment. So those data points are the same. And you can see a couple other things like the real estate costs at the bottom still there. We can serve customers better is a key point of keeping people at their home offices, which is interesting because you also see we can serve customers better on site as a reason. I think what we're seeing here is contact center agents are able to be a little more flexible with their schedules when they're working from home offices, so it does help companies serve their customers better for those reasons. Reducing agent turnover rates, you can see there in the middle, is a big deal for sure, because in the contact center right now, the average turnover rate is about 21%. It's getting better, believe me. Just 3 or 4 years ago, it was at 38%, so it's definitely coming down. But anything you can do to reduce those turnover rates, we've got data that shows all sorts of goodness that happens, and I've got a couple points on that in a minute. And then you can see technology just worked better than we thought. So that's a really important point there. About 34% of companies went into this thinking, okay, this is going to be a disaster, the technology's not going to work, and wow, we're pleasantly surprised. So I think that was a really important data point that stood out to me as well. So when we look at what's keeping them from continuing this work-at-home experiment, and they want people back to the office, to the contact center in this case. Sorry, just trying to get there we go. Security, go back. Sorry about that. So security and remote management were the biggest inhibitors. So you remember with employees at large, the biggest reason to get people back to the office was because it was difficult to manage them remotely. Here, it's security concerns. So, and that makes sense. I mean, you're in a contact center, you're dealing with customer data, and the ability to control that at a home office may be a little bit more challenging for some organizations. So that's one of the issues. Difficulty in managing them remotely is the second one. And then you've got a bunch that are kind of tied here. This is a smaller data set, obviously, because only about 15% said no. But just serving customers better on site is also a reason to get people back to the contact center. So there's kind of a split there as to where you can serve customers better. They were more productive at the office. We need face-to-face time, or just the nature of our business requires people to be in the office. And a small percentage, about 20%, said that they had an issue of extending apps to the home office. And only about 10% here, less than 10%, said the technology did not work well enough. So when you look at technology in general, that was more on the plus side than the negative side for sure. Okay. And then when we look at the challenges that companies faced when they moved agents specifically to home offices, security, definitely the top one here, for the reasons I just said. And then, of course, that's a little bit different than just employees at large. Managing them remotely, those two were flipped for employee at large, those first two. And then you've got all the technology issues like we saw before, internet performance, network infrastructure, access to apps, video quality, getting the IT equipment to people again. The last one here is a new one, lacking that they lacked analytics to measure agent success. So I think that's a big one as we see companies trying to evaluate what they want to do next. Analytics and having the data is crucial. So I think that's a message to any contact center provider that some of the organizations working from home offices are going to need this analytics data to determine, okay, how well do we do working from home with agents working from home? How was did our NPS or CSAT scores go up or go down? Did our first call response numbers go up or down? How are we doing? What are our KPIs looking like in our home offices versus otherwise, working at the contact center? So that's another one I think that is important to have the data to make those decisions moving forward. So like the workplace collaboration vendor, I did the same thing, ran the same chart with contact center agents or contact center vendors. So who are companies using as their contact center vendors, and what percentage of those companies plan to continue working from home after COVID? You can see Amazon, Amazon Connect is at the top there, followed by a lot of the providers. So carriers like AT&T and Verizon. Then you've got Vonage, which serves a lot, mostly in the state of there were smaller companies there. And then you've got, Cisco, TalkDesk, Avaya, CenturyLink, and then Genesis, Zendesk, Genesis, and Mitel. But again, all of them, over 50% or over of their, customers are planning to continue working from home. And when you look at a company like a Genesis, for example, they have a lot of larger contact centers. Same with Avaya, they have a lot of larger contact centers, so you can see, that some of those might fit in that mold of, wanting to get back to their large contact center facility. So I wanted to make a couple quick points about contact centers. One of the things that we saw as we were looking at this data is just how much real estate cost savings is possible. So when you look at contact centers, just look at each cube. Obviously the cost is going to vary based on, wherever you're located in the country or the world. The average in the U.S. is about $8,300 per agent per year for actual real estate in a contact center. So let's say you shift to a hoteling kind of environment where, okay, half the agents are going to work from home part-time and the other half at the office, and then they swap, week to week or days of the week. Or you just say, hey, we're just going to send this half home permanently and this half will always be in the office. However you want to do it. But let's say you can split that in half. I mean, you're saving a lot of money here. A 500-agent contact center would save about $2 million a year or more. So it's pretty substantial. So I think this is something that companies need to look at in light of their trial by fire here with working from home for a contact center is, just what can you save, and is it worth it? Is it worth, have you been able to get this work from home thing down pat and you're seeing good numbers in your CSAT scores and even on the employee side, people are happier, your turnover rates are going down. This might be something to consider. That money can then be invested in other areas. Now, we talked about agent and quality of life, and of course, when agents are happy, so are customers typically. If you have a miserable agent, your chances of having customers stay happy aren't very good. So what we found in our research is that if you can keep agents happy, they're going to stay with the company longer. So flexible work schedules and locations are going to help with that. And what we found in our research is that companies that can keep that agent turnover rate to less than 15% annually will see a 26% improvement in their customer ratings. So this is kind of another driver that might make companies consider working from home or allowing their agents to work from home, because they're not going to leave. They're not going to be as likely to leave, and your customer ratings are going to go up, and all sorts of good things come with that, as we know. Now, there are other things that also help when it comes to working from home. It just makes contact centers and just companies overall more flexible. So think about weather and natural disasters that happen. From a contact center perspective, you can get the contact center and your communications with customers set back up very quickly and can be back in business. And that goes the same with your employees as well. So if you can't get into the office because there's been some sort of disaster, if people can work from their home offices, whether contact center agents or not, this is going to help the company overall. So I think what we're probably going to see is most companies, whether they allow people to continue working from home full or part-time, I think they're going to have a contingency plan where it's going to be very easy to make that happen. So even if I'm an employee and I'm going to go back to the office full-time now, I'm going to have something that's going to make it very easy for me to do this, again, if I have to in the future for any reason. Remote agents can help expand hours. So when you think about in the contact center, you can run split shifts for people. You think about work quality, life balance. I've talked to agents who have said, they're able to work early in the mornings, get their kids off to school, work while their kids are in school, and then maybe work in the evenings or some combination of that, where they can do that work-life balance. They can sign in and out and still get the time, the number of hours per week that they want to work, but they might be dealing with different regions, and that really helps too, the work quality, life balance. And also just having remote agents fill in when some of these incidents take place. So if I am set up to work from home and there's a disaster halfway across the world, or even in another city in your own country, you can now, help out. You can just say, hey, yeah, I'll work. I'll log in right now and help out and see what I can do. You could see this being a very good solution for airlines, for example, when there's weather issues. And then just being able to help agents and employees if there's any sort of personal issues, that you can still be productive and effective working from home, but you may have to be dealing with something personal a few hours during that day. Okay.
Robin, just to jump in before we get too far,
Yeah,
a number of questions about the source of the data. Could you just go over again where the data comes from?
Oh, yeah, so this is from a research study we did, primarily IT leaders. There are some CX leaders in this as well. But so IT and CX leaders, 460 companies, 8 countries, average number of employees is about 8,000. So it's from a research study that we did where we interviewed some organizations and then we surveyed others. We conducted it from April 2nd through the 7th. Okay. All right, and then, so just moving on here, I always like to talk about how we can help. If you see the data, you see some of the research that we're doing, what we can do to help you as an organization, whether you're a vendor or an enterprise organization. We do business with both. Our business is about half and half. And we work with most companies as a research advisory service, so it's kind of an annual relationship where you have access to all the analysts, all the research. You can get custom cuts of the data. We don't do any seats or tracks or anything like that. You have custom inquiries that we can do. If you have a project or something that you're working on, you can use our data in your presentations if you're a client. So that's something you might want to consider if this is interesting to you. We also do other, one-off type things too, like workshops. So virtual workplace strategy session where we can help you with your planning post-pandemic and beyond. We have a lot more data than what we're presenting here. that just looks at how companies are using various technologies, who they're using, what are they spending on various providers, how do they rate their providers. We have all that data that really helps you to make that decision. One of the other things we do is something called a Quick Start RFP, where we can very quickly go out to vendors in whatever space you're looking at and gather information that will help you make your decision, information about their technologies, their features, their products, their pricing, their references, and so on, that we can manage for you. That's a very well-regarded service and something that really helps companies as they're making their vendor decisions. There are other things we can do with data-backed guidance, just looking at success metrics. What are successful companies doing versus others, doing cost modeling for you. And then on the vendor side, we do an awful lot of marketing content and message testing. Now, just to be clear, I didn't mention this before, but this, we do this research. It's not that it's sponsored research. It's something that we do independently on our own. We do also do custom research, but in this case, this is not what this is. All right. And then just wrapping up before we get to the questions, and I see there's a lot of them. Okay. I would just say to make sure that you're reevaluating your work from home, whether it's agent or employee, with experience that you have from the pandemic. Look at measuring success. Are your employees more productive? Is there a way to measure that? Are they using technology more? Are they doing more calls over video, and how is that working? Really try and determine what metrics you're going to look at, measure those, and then determine whether you want to stay at home offices or part-time home offices, or what you want to do. I think now's the time to be planning for post-pandemic. I would say to make recommendations to the CFO for changes that you want to implement. So if you're in IT or if you're in business, a business unit, and you see some benefit or not with work from home, make your voice known. Make sure you're comprehensive on that and evaluate the various business metrics and infrastructure, if it's an agent or a contact center environment. Look at the management strategies that you've seen and present that and make sure that you're really conveying what you think you should do. And I think that to make work from home successful, it really has to be deliberate. So for agents specifically, you have to have the right tools for them to be able to communicate with customers. For employees, they have to have the right collaboration tools to be able to communicate with one another. And make sure that all of your employees are able to grow in their professions. Just because you're going into a home office doesn't mean that you can't be promoted, that you can't be continuing learning and educating and training your employees, that they can't move up and get certifications and do online learning. There's a lot that can happen in home offices, a lot that already is happening in home offices. So embrace those benefits of things like online learning and video and collaboration tools overall. And with that, Erwin, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you, Robin. And before we head into our Q&A period, I would like to draw everyone's attention to the links in the attachment tab. And let me go ahead and move up one slide here. Okay, so we have an upcoming webinar that will be live on April 23rd at noon Eastern. And that one is focused on work from home requiring team collaboration. I'll be co-presenting that one with Justin Huskamp, who's Group Manager Solutions Marketing at Slack. So you can go ahead and register to attend that by clicking on the registration link. You'll also see a link for our upcoming webinar entitled Real World Benefits of Team Collaboration and Meeting Applications, which I'll also be presenting. That's on April 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And again, you can register for that webinar by clicking on the link. And I'd like to let everyone know about our Navigator 2020 conference. This is going to be a virtual event on May 19th, and will be focused on transforming the technology foundation from strategy to action. Participants will gain deep insight from Nemerte's groundbreaking research on emerging technologies and allowing them to take advantage of our better data to enable better decisions as you interact with peers who share their own cautionary tales and stories of success. Please click on the link again in the attachments part of BrightTALK to learn more about the conference, and we'll have registration links available shortly. Also like to invite you again to participate in our research. Robin talked about our research earlier on, and we've got a number of studies. I'll be launching one focused on video conferencing, video streaming, and related technologies. And if you'd like to participate in that research, please again follow the link in the attachment section. We hold your information confidential, and you do have the opportunity to get a copy of the results once they are available. And there's also an infographic which covers some of the highlights of today's research and a link to our Quick Start RFP that Robin mentioned. And you'll also find a link to our website. So we invite you to contact us and connect and continue to engage with us. So we'll go ahead and leave the contact slide up as we go into the Q&A. And Robin, we've got a number of questions. The first one is, the same question we get all the time, which is, can we get a copy of the slides? For our clients, we'd be happy to share those with you. For others, if you'd like to become a client, please do contact us. Otherwise, we do make a replay of this webinar available in our BrightTALK channel, and you're more than welcome to listen to that and share that with your colleagues. Robin, a question about how you handle performance management at home. Is there, when we're thinking about performance of agents, performance of employees, are there different areas that we look at as we're thinking about, you mentioned management was one of the top concerns. How do you effectively manage those home workers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good and loaded question because there's a lot of answers to that. So one of the things I tell organizations is, how are you doing it at the office? And try not to make it different, Try and use those same metrics, those same KPIs that you have at the office because you already have data on that. So how are people doing at the office? And just compare it to how they're doing at their home offices. So that's one, just very basic, I guess, recommendation. I've seen organizations look at things like number of hours worked. Okay, is the employee at his or her desk from 9 to 5, that kind of thing. Being able to look at things like present status so you can see if they're actually working or not. I would discourage that, actually, and the reason for that is because I think as people start working from home, there are some benefits to that you're going to find if you're not there already actually are a benefit to the organization. So, if I can work from home and stop an hour a day to go and do whatever I want, do some laundry, clean my house, do whatever, that's not weighing on me anymore. I come back to my office, I'm completely refreshed, and I'm going to do more work. And I'm going to still, work my 8 hours. I just may end up working them sometime between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. with some breaks in between. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the actual hours unless for some reason they need to be there, the actual, 9 to 5, 8 to 4, as long as they're getting their work done. I think that's one of the big things. It is a different environment working from home than it is in the office for obvious reasons. And I think a lot of times people integrate their work life with their home life, so you might not see the typical start and end time as abruptly as you do at the office. So one of the things I encourage people to is just measure the end result as opposed to the process of getting there. If people are getting their work done, I've managed people working from home office environments since 1990, and I've worked from home for that long myself. And to me, it's like I don't care when people get their work done as long as they're doing it. And if they're not doing it, it comes up very clear. I mean, it boils to the top pretty easily. So I think that's another thing. And it also just depends on what kind of work you're doing. So if it is a contact center, I would encourage you to still use your KPIs to see if you're able to, are you having a problem? Is first call resolution not happening well enough because your agents don't have access to certain AI virtual assistants, or maybe they don't have the right kind of access to CRM to get the information they need. That's an issue, and that should shine pretty quickly based on the metrics. But I think, just wrapping up this question, I mean, I think it's a great question, and it's not one that has an answer for every company other than the things that I talked about already. I think it's something that you really have to look at with your individual company. It's something we'd be happy to help you with if you need that.
Yeah, and we talked in the previous webinar I did on work from home, which is in our BrightTALK channel, about the need for managing engagement of remote employees. So looking at if you're using a team messaging application, using a video application, if those people are just on the calls or they're not communicating, you want to be able to identify that. And some of the management tools will allow you to do that. Some of the platforms will allow you to look at engagement. And it may also just be something that you get a sense of as you're in the meetings. In fact, that actually comes up with a question about, or actually more of a comment. Someone mentioned that, employees are humans. Humans will always find a way to dodge problems. So I'm not sure if it's the technology or human nature who gets the most of the technology. So I think people are finding ways to carry on their work as they go on.
Yeah.
Question about for employees, not contact center agents, but knowledge workers.
Okay.
What kind of enabling applications are we seeing people use? Things like Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google, et cetera.
Oh, Erwin, I think I put that one right back at you because that's your
yeah,
area of expertise.
So we did another work from home success tips, which is in our BrightTALK channel that I presented about a week ago. And what we found are sort of the two requirement baseline applications are team collaboration, which we'll talk about on Thursday, as well as video meeting applications. So if you don't have either one of those deployed, now is a really good time to take advantage of a number of the free offers that are out there from vendors. If you do have them deployed, you definitely want to extend those to make sure that it's not just siloed workers, but that everybody can use them. Robin, someone asked about last mile. How do you overcome the last mile issues related to home internet connectivity?
I did not see a lot of problems with last mile issues. In most areas, surprisingly, it hasn't been that bad. In more remote areas, we certainly are seeing wireless. You can see 3, 4, 5G, coming in to help there. But overall, honestly, that's been something I've been kind of surprised about, that I haven't heard more complaints about last mile, last mile capabilities. I don't know. Have you heard anything, Erwin? Because in the research, some of the connectivity did come up as an issue with some companies, but it wasn't a big enough issue to where people aren't working at home because of it, or won't continue to work from home because of it.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. We've heard about it, probably exacerbated more as the shift toward working home has become more mandatory than optional.
Yeah.
And so it definitely is an issue. Robin, I think we're actually over time. I just got the message from BrightTALK that we've got about 1 minute left.
Okay.
So why don't we give you a chance to close with any final comments and let folks know where they can reach you to find out additional information.
Oh, yeah. So if anyone has any further questions that we didn't get to, I know I see a lot of them on the screen here. We can get back to you on them. My email is robin@nemerdes.com. I'd be happy to answer any of those questions for you. Otherwise, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.